And welcome back, everyone, to Cyrus Webb Presents The Right Stuff here on Amazon Live. I'm your host, Cyrus Webb. Glad you all could join us once again. Glad to be back with you guys on Amazon Live. We took off a few days as we were getting ready for some new products that were coming in for back to school. You guys will be hearing more about that as we're going into the next week. But I'm so excited about this week's episode of The Right Stuff because I have my friend Tina Siemens joining us today. She's the author right now currently of two books with more to come. The first book I got to know her from is this book called Seminole. You guys see it there. And now she has her newest book, The Little Sandals That Could. Tina's joining us today as part of The Right Stuff to talk to us about the journey of a writer, what it's been like for her as a writer to be able to share her stories with the world, to be able to see the way that people made a personal connection with her family and her own story. And then, of course, about her advice for other authors as well. And that's what we do here at The Right Stuff. We love to be able to deep dive into the authors you guys have heard about and read their books. For those who are joining us on the Amazon Live side, welcome to you. Make sure you guys do hit that follow button that's either here in this corner or down below. Also, either beneath us or on the side of us, you will notice Tina's two books that are out now that I just mentioned, both Seminole as well as The Little Sandals That Could. But Tina, thank you so much for being on with us. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. What an honor. I truly enjoy having these live shows with you.
Well, thank you for that, Tina. So, Tina, as I mentioned, this show's a little bit different. You're used to being a part of Cyrus Webb Presents and being able to talk, more about what your books are about. But this show is really about your journey as an author yourself. So I want to talk about that as I held up your two books that are currently out. What has this experience been like for you, Tina, to go from having these stories be a part of your life to now being able to share them in books?
It's been a beautiful journey because I never, when grew up, I did not have, oh, one day I'll be an author. That did not cross. So it was a process in itself for me to get to the point of oh, this could be a book. And as I was writing, and I was always journaling, and I wanted to keep a journal or an account for my children and grandchildren for their future, so that they wouldn't have to go through the hard process of searching and traveling to archives to find out where's our roots coming from. And so as I was traveling and finding out a timeline of what my family history was like, I thought, well, I just want to make that a more simple process for my children and grandchildren. And so that's where it started, but it kind of evolved into what is now the books. But it's been an amazing journey. I would do it all over again.
Yeah. I want to talk about that a bit, Tina, because I love this, because I'm always curious about the why. Like, especially for people who are writing nonfiction like yourself, why did you decide to tell this story? Because like you said, it started off being something personal, right? It was something personal for your family to be able to have.
Mm-hmm.
And there may be a lot of our viewing audience, Tina, who can relate to that, right? I know my family had at one point wanted to be able to tell our very interesting story of our history. We have not done that. And sometimes I think I'm glad about that. but I think there are some people who have a history that they want to be able to share. When did it go from being something for the family to now being something from the world? When did that transition happen for you?
I think it was when I had outlined like what I would wanted to write. I'm a huge fan of timelines.
Okay.
And I had a timeline of where was it, where the Mennonite faith began, and what all went on going back to the 1500s. So when I did that timeline, I all of a sudden saw chapters, because the timeline was in increments of immigration story. And so it was from one immigration to another. And that looked like chapters to me. And so when I finished the timeline, I finally felt like now I had something that my future grandchildren or future generations would be able to take without having to go do all that research on their own. And not my love for history was fed at the same time. So it was both satisfying for myself, but then my ultimate goal was for my family to have an account written down. And so when that timeline was done, I think that's when it hit me that this can be something that I can share with others.
Tina, let's go a little bit further because for our audience that may just be discovering you, even though you've made several appearances on Cyrus Webb Presents, did you have others in your family that had written books or thought about writing prior to you?
No, there's no one. I'm the first in, as far as I know, on either side of my mom's family or my dad's family.
Wow.
And just, I think the curiosity in me, and there's always a saying, like my given name is Katharina. And the saying is, if you have a Katharina in the house, that you don't even have to have a watchdog because Tinas or Katharinas are naturally so curious. And
Yeah.
and so I think for me, it was I've always been very curious of what's the world like, what's out there. And my dad was curious too, but uh, where he grew up in old Mexico, the opportunities weren't there. And so for me to be able to have the opportunity, and because I will go if I can't find an answer, I won't stop. Hence the title, Some People Never Give Up. I'm a very determined person. Once I have something in mind, I will go to all means to see if there's a possibility, I will find it. And I think
Mm.
for me, that was a huge part of getting the timeline. It was because it required me to travel to Poland and to Ukraine and to Canada and Mexico and all over Europe, because it was not just Seminole, Texas story, but it was a
Yeah.
worldwide story. And so for me to be able to travel and gather that information, that was a huge part of the process of me writing these books.
Love that. I want to say for those who are just tuning in, you all are watching The Right Stuff here on Cyrus Represents on Amazon Live. My guest for today is author Tina Siemens. We're talking with her about her own writing journey. Tina is the author currently of two books for those tuning in on the Amazon Live side. Seminole, you guys see it there. Some People Never Give Up. We have it highlighted in the carousel. It's available in print as well as a Kindle edition right now. It's only $3.99. Also, she has The Little Sandals That Could. You all can see it here. The print edition is $9.99. I have it there. Also, I will let you guys know if you're interested in starting an Audible trial, you can get the Audible of The Little Sandals That Could for free right now with your Audible trial. So I have it highlighted right there for you guys as well. So Tina, you said something. I love that about the curiosity. So one thing I mentioned to you before we began was kind of knowing your own personal timeline. I love the fact that you talked about the timeline of the book. So talk to us about when you started Seminole, the first book, and when you actually completed it. When did it start and when did you actually complete it?
Well, I completed it in 2019.
Okay.
September is when I had a book launch, but it was a 4-year process from start to
Wow.
finish. And so oftentimes I would reread and rewrite and I at some point I hired help to really make sure that it would be the right uh, spelling and all of editing and all of that. So it was a long process, and when I started writing my own timeline, I thought I would just be able to go online and find a program, but that seemed harder than what I uh, imagined, and so I was able to acquire help, and that's a huge part of if you don't have what you think it takes to finish a book, there's so much help out there that can help you finish the process. So if you have the thoughts, if you have the story, then there's computer programs and there's people that actually write. So just last week, I met somebody in Lubbock, Texas, that said that's all he does is he teaches how to write. And so I just feel like even though it was by hands-on learning. A lot of these things, the people that don't want to do that, there's other ways of getting it done by you
Yeah.
hiring somebody else. And so I think it's a beautiful process of people being able to get their stories out on paper, and for an actual book to be on the bookshelf for generations to come.
Yeah. What was it like for you to first hold Seminole yourself? What was that experience like for you in 2019?
It was one that I have actually recorded a video of when the UPS
Ah,
delivered my first book. We were having a meeting about a history, historical committee here in Seminole. We were having a meeting at my house, and when that UPS, like I'd gotten an email that it would be delivered that day somewhere, and I had actually told the group that if the UPS comes, this is what I'm expecting. And lo and behold, it happened exactly during the time. So there was a lady that recorded me opening the package of getting my first book, and it was just absolutely surreal because it was a gift that I knew that the journey had finally paid off.
yeah. I think, for me, one thing I thought about, Tina, you and I have not talked about this publicly, but you got a chance to meet my friend and colleague, Michael Johnson, before he passed with Centertainment there in
Yeah,
Texas, one of the stations that
exactly.
carries my shows. And what I bring that
Mhm.
up because you've made so many connections over that
Oh,
time
yeah.
since the book initially came out. You and I have not personally met in person, but we've had several now conversations on platforms like Amazon Live, on the radio show, for Amazon Music, where my podcast is. What has that experience been like for you to be? Because I know this is not the easiest thing for you. So what has it been like for you
No.
to do these interviews, do these discussions like this?
Well, for with Michael Jackson, it was
Mhm.
the very first uh, experience that I would have never dreamt of as a little girl. To be able to go fly to Dallas and to have an in-person interview, and so that will always be a very special interview because it was the first of many to come. And the interviews that I've been able to do with you, like I'm technology is not my cup of tea, and so I've learned a lot with technology. I took a course in college, and it was how to turn this computer on, and that was my first course of just being a, because we didn't grow up with a TV in the home. We didn't grow up with any type of gadgets in our home. That was just not. We could have, it would have been permitted in my family already, but it was just not something that our culture did. So when
Yeah.
my husband John and I had our two sons, we said we are going to stay ahead of the curve just enough to where we don't have to call them and turn our computer on. And so with you, that has just been such a learning curve as well, because the different platforms. One of these days, I will not have to call and or text you and say, Cyrus, is this correct? And so it's a learning curve, and it's such a beautiful thing if you don't feel like, oh, this is too much. Like I'm not an anxious person. For somebody that would be anxious, they would say no. But my title or the subtitle of Seminoles, some people never give up, is like really the carrot dangling in front of me. It keeps me accountable because I've said that, I've put it on paper, and now for me to stop and at any time, I would not allow myself or forgive myself for doing so. So it's also a drive within myself to keep moving forward and to persevering, even though it is uncomfortable and is not something that I would choose to do on a daily basis. But it's such a beautiful learning curve because I'm open to it.
Yeah. I love that you call it that, a beautiful learning curve. I'm going through it myself, Tina. I think we all are because technology is ever changing. We learn one thing, then something else changes. And so, I mean, I think we
Yeah,
all are going through
exactly.
that, learning. And I want to say for those who are
Mhm.
just tuning in again, you're watching The Right Stuff here at Cyrus Represents on Amazon Live. My guest is author Tina Siemens today. Tina's the author of two books. We have them highlighted in the carousel there. Seminal, Some People Never Give Up. You all see it there, as well as her newest book, The Little Sandals That Could. Again, the paperback is $9.99. You all can see it there. So Tina, okay, so 2019, you released Seminole,
Mhm.
Some People Never Give Up. Now you have the newest book that is here, The Little Sandals That Could. It came out this year. So what was that like? How did
Mhm.
you use what you learned with Seminole with the new book?
I wanted it to be more at a younger school age level,
Mhm.
anywhere from grade 4 to grade 7. And so I thought with pictures, like I mention my grandchildren a lot because they are a huge part of everything that I do is for them or wanting to be with them and learning with them together. So I thought if I could get the same story, so the little sandals that could is kind of the same story that I have in Seminole, just from my personal point of view of what was it sitting at the border for 5 days. What did I go through? What was the process? And to then add all the different drawings on each page to go with the story. I wanted that to be of more an interest because children they love looking at pictures as
Yeah.
well as reading the text. So I wanted that to be more memorable for your audience. But I think, as I've heard many times, that it's not just for a younger audience, but the older people are enjoying that much more. The ones that have read Seminole, they say that it was just like a beautiful, fresh reminder from a just a little different perspective because I kind of tell the story at the end of Seminole, I promised my mom and dad that I'll carry the story forward. I will
Mm.
not let our story die down. And so with the children's book, that was kind of okay. That's just another level of carrying that story forward. It's such a beautiful story of being able to say that's where we were, but look how far we've come. Like when I was 8 years old, I did not know a word in English. My teacher had to come and hold my hand and show me. And so from that point to where I'm today, it's just like a world apart. And I wanted that whole story, that whole process to not die with me. I
Mm.
pray the Lord gives me many years, but I want that story to go on. And my grandchildren, they definitely approve. I've got video of where they read the first book and how they just uh, open up and say, "This is really what happened to you, Oma." And I said, "Yeah, that was me." And so for me to be able to see that, that's all the reward I ever wanted to would have hoped for. But it's not just for my family, but now available to the world, and that's like wow, it's such a beautiful thing.
Yeah. I love that, Tina, and what a great feeling that has to be. I remember when my mom first saw my first book, and what that experience was like.
Mhm.
So it's what an awesome experience
Yeah.
to share with your family. Has it become something comfortable for you, Tina, to think of yourself as an example to others? Is that something that's been easier for you to embrace?
Absolutely, because I can now say, even with this process, that it's such a rewarding process, and for me to be able to use that in encouraging others. Like each human being has a story, and nobody tells it as well as you do. And so for each individual, if they desire to have a written account, then nobody can do it as well as that individual. So for them to just start the process and to make it happen, uh, even though it takes years, but start. That I think that's the biggest key is to just start, because the like the Red Sea, it did not open up until Moses stepped into the waters. So sometimes we have
Mm.
to get in the uncomfortable zone to be able to get to the finish line. Because if we never start the race, then we will never see the finish line. And so I just encourage others that if they aspire to be an author, there's no better time than today to do so.
You mentioned it was a 4-year process from beginning to end with Seminole, Tina. Was there ever a time that you thought you couldn't do it?
Yes, those moments, they come if you had rewritten a chapter like 4 or 5 times and it just did not seem to fit. Then there was those times where, is this really what I want to pursue? But then as soon as that, you'd walk away or you'd sleep over it or even put it away for a couple of days and come back to it, and then I would read other accounts of our history, and it filled in the dots, and it just made the story so sweet again. If I could read, because it was about family. My family has always been in leadership. So, and every migration going back to the late 1700s, I can trace back a family member that was either in the front line working toward making a new change, or being at a new place and forging a new lifestyle for them. So for me to be able to trace that back to family members, that was that gave me that push. Yes, this has to be a completed job.
Yeah, love that. Hello to you, Amazon customer. Thank you so much for the follow over there on the Amazon Live side. Again, everyone, Tina Siemens has been our guest. She's the author of 2 books, Seminole, Some People Never Give Up. You all can see it there. I'm going to go ahead and highlight it again on the Amazon side for you guys there. It's available in paperback, like what I have, as well as a Kindle edition, which is $3.99. Also, she has her second book came out this year, The Little Sandals That Could. It is $9.99. You guys can see it there. It also is available in the Kindle edition. And as I mentioned, if you guys are getting an Audible trial, you all can get the Little Sandals That Could, the audio book for free right now. So definitely make sure you guys take advantage of that. Tina, this has been a great conversation, so different than the ones we've had before. I want to ask you about your advice, though, because there are some people who are just thinking about writing a book. Maybe they've started and haven't finished. What advice would you give to someone who feels like they have a story to tell?
Well, my first piece would be never give up. If I write anything, I write an email, or if I write a text message, or if I write a card, that is my number one advice. Never give up. If you've started, find new inspiration, and speak to others who have walked the path before. Somebody that's in your town, or go to your local bookstore and or attend some book signings. You'll be inspired. Just get some inspiration to pick up the pen again, and to start the process. And I think if they will look for new inspiration, it's all around us.
Mm, such a great point. Tina, thank you so much for being on with us. Congratulations on the 2 books that are out now. Again, I know there is much more to come from you. How can our viewers stay connected with you, Tina?
They can email me at seminothebook@gmail.com, or go to my media platforms, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, at seminothebook.com. So I'd love to hear from you.
All right. So make sure you guys definitely stay connected with Tina. Again, she's all over the place. Make sure you guys do pick up her books. They really are inspiring. And what makes them so special is they're true. They're nonfiction books about her family, about her journey, what they've been able to go through, what they've been able to overcome. but also how they've been able to move forward and now inspire all of us through these books. Tina, again, thank you so much and looking forward to our next chat together.
Sounds great. Thanks again for having me, and have a blessed rest of the evening.
Thank you as well. And we thank your audience for tuning in to The Right Stuff here on Amazon Live as part of Cyrus Webb Presents. Until next time, I'm saying Cyrus Webb signing off. I'll be with you guys again soon. Take care. We'll talk soon.